In the grim darkness of the far future, time doesn't heal, it wounds. Civilizations rot, stars die screaming, and even gods have bad centuries. But amid all this entropy, a question lingers like a forbidden psalm. Do Primarchs get old? It's not as simple as checking for grey hairs and bad knees. The sons of the Emperor aren't just oversized super soldiers, they're engineered paragons, forged from mystery, myth, and something far stranger than science. Each Primarch was built to conquer reality itself, shaped to wage war against both xenos and the supernatural. But for all their power, they were still, technically, human. Weren't they? That's what we're here to unpack. Can the Emperor's sons succumb to something as mundane as time? Or are they timeless, eternal, ageless war gods masquerading in flesh and power armor? Over the course of this video, we'll dig into their mysterious creation, compare them to the Emperor and the so-called Perpetuals, and dive into the metaphysical weirdness of the warp. We'll talk about the strange soul stuff the Primarchs might be made from, the eerie theory that they were crafted from the ashes of humanity's forgotten gods, and why even the forces of chaos may have left fingerprints on their genesis. To ask whether the Primarchs can age, you first have to ask what they even are, and that's where things get murky. On paper, the Primarchs are genetically engineered superhumans, created by the Emperor of mankind in a process so convoluted, secretive, and godlike that even today, no one's entirely sure how he did it. They were more than just enhanced humans. They were living weapons, each sculpted to embody a different facet of mankind. Demigods in flesh, made to be generals, saviors, and symbols. And then it all went sideways. Their gestation capsules were scattered across the galaxy by the Chaos Gods, because of course, nothing sacred in 40K gets to go uncorrupted. The Great Plan, whatever that actually was, got torpedoed by meddling demons, and the Primarchs were left to grow up in various hellholes with daddy issues baked into their genetic code. But that's just the official story, because when it comes to the Primarchs' creation, there are a few unsettling theories. But for now, all we need to understand is this. The Primarchs were never just super soldiers. They were something more, something not entirely mortal, and maybe not entirely human. Before we can decide whether the Primarchs can age, let's talk about Perpetuals, because that's the closest thing humanity has to a cheat code for death. Perpetuals are rare individuals who possess what can only be described as a biological or metaphysical get-out-of-death-free card. They don't just live for a long time, they live forever, regenerating from wounds, diseases, and even complete bodily destruction. They're not unkillable, but they are absurdly hard to put down for good. And at the top of this very exclusive club is the Emperor of Mankind. Not only is he a Perpetual, he's the Perpetual, the gold standard, the one who's been around since before written history, possibly clocking in at over 50,000 years old. And while he's currently stapled to a throne that eats psychers for breakfast, he's technically still alive. Mostly. Probably. Listen, if the Emperor can't die of old age, then time itself is just too scared to try. Then there's Vulcan, Primarch of the Salamanders and a confirmed Perpetual. That's right. One of the Emperor's sons is immortal, regenerates from fatal wounds, and basically has plot armor thicker than his power armor. He's been atomized, tortured, exploded, you name it, and he just keeps coming back. Vulcan's status isn't even up for debate. It's hard canon, and that's where things get interesting. Because if the Emperor is immortal, and at least one of his Primarch sons shares that trait, how likely is it that the others do too? Sure, We haven't seen Russ crawl out of a volcano yet, or Dawn regrow from a skeleton, but the precedent is there. If immortality runs in the family, then the Primarchs weren't built to age, they were built to last. The Primarchs might not all be Perpetuals in the technical sense, but their resilience, regeneration, and sheer refusal to die suggest they play by the same cosmic rules. They're not bound by the ticking clock of mortality. They're tied to something deeper, something closer to the warp itself, and that leads us straight to their souls. You can't talk about the Primarchs without talking about their souls, because these aren't your run-of-the-mill mortal spirits. A Primarch's soul is more than just a passenger riding in the meat suit. It's a blazing beacon in the warp, a psychic fingerprint that screams, "I am not normal," loud enough to get a Chaos God's attention. And keep it. There's a theory, equal parts fascinating and terrifying, that the Emperor didn't just make the Primarchs out of genes, muscle, and whatever was left in the Imperial fridge that day. Instead, he may have delved into the warp and harvested echoes of humanity's forgotten gods. You know, those old myths and deities we left behind when we traded campfires for nuclear reactors? Well, those divine leftovers might still be floating out there in the Empyrean, and the Emperor may have turned them into sons. That would mean the Primarchs are, in essence, constructed from the raw, spiritual detritus of ancient belief, woven into flesh and bound by psychic force. They're not just demigods because of their strength or command. They're demigods because their souls literally carry divine echoes. Now that's some artisan-level soulcraft. And here's where it ties back to our central question. Warp entities, demons, chaos gods, even minor spirits, don't age. They persist. A demon doesn't get wrinkles. A keeper of secrets doesn't need moisturizer. So if the Primarchs are part warp in soul, that means they've inherited something deeply unnatural. Agelessness. Their bodies may bleed, their minds may fracture, but their core, their soul, is built from something that does not rot, does not rust, and most importantly, does not age. So maybe that's the real trick. The Primarchs were never meant to fade. Would you want a full video breaking down the craziest theories behind how the Primarchs were made? Let me know in the comments, because it only gets weirder from here. When Lionel Johnson emerged from his long slumber in the depths of the rock, fans did a double take. This wasn't the towering golden-haired warrior of the Great Crusade. This was a man who looked older, white hair, weathered features, a somber, almost monk-like presence. And for a moment, some people panicked. Do Primarchs age after all? Let's slow down. The lion wasn't sleeping for no reason. He was wounded, badly. His final battle on Caliban, his heartbreaking duel with Luther, and the psychic devastation that followed didn't just damage his body, it cracked something deeper. His stasis wasn't the slow creep of time, it was a healing coma for a being who had been torn apart in more ways than one. Then there's the idea, stranger but fitting, that the lion's appearance reflects his inner state. We're talking about a being deeply intertwined with the warp, which means physical form can be shaped by the soul. After living through the heresy, watching his sons fall to madness and vanishing into legend, maybe the lion sees himself as an old man, a penitent knight, a tired warrior weighed down by regret. So that's what we get. Not decay, but self-reflection. And yet, despite the white beard and soft-spoken demeanor, the real lion is still very much intact. He regains his strength. His tactical brilliance never dulled. And then in a moment that puts all doubts to rest, he throws hands with Demon Angron and wins. Not just survives, wins. That's no small feat. considering Angron's basically the avatar of rage and one of the most terrifying threats in the galaxy. So maybe the white hair is just aesthetics, a symbol, a reflection, but not a sign of decline. If anything, the lion returned wiser, more focused, and, ironically, more dangerous than ever. He may look older, but he remains unbroken. The Tempera Ferox are a race of half-seen, half-rotted xenos that don't fight with bullets or blades. They fight with time itself. Their bizarre biology and possibly warp-twisted tech let them accelerate entropy, aging anything caught in their presence into brittle dust. Entire battalions of space marines have crumbled to bone and rust in seconds. To face the Tempera Ferox is to face time as a weapon, and time always wins, unless you're Perturabo. During one of his lesser-known but utterly wild encounters, the Lord of Iron faced the Tempera Ferox and walked away unaged and unbothered. No withered limbs, no silver hair, no grim monologue about time catching up with him. Just a Primarch doing what Primarchs do, ignoring the rules of reality and ruining the enemy's day. So how did he survive what should have been instant biological collapse? There are two solid theories. First, Perturabo might simply be immortal. Aging isn't something that affects him, because his physiology just says no to the concept of time. He exists outside the mortal arc of birth, decay, and death. Time tries to touch him and fails. Second, his soul, saturated with warp energy and psychic force, disrupts the Tempera Ferox manipulation of temporal fields. Warp entities don't operate on mortal time. You can't age a demon. You can't wrinkle a god. And if the Primarchs were made from the same volatile, immortal stuff, then temporal decay would bounce off them like bullets off ceramite. Either way, the message is clear. Perturabo looked time in the eye and didn't flinch. That's not just resilience, it's a declaration. The Primarchs, like their father and their essence, may not be bound by the ticking clock. Let's pull the pieces together. The Emperor, humanity's ultimate perpetual, is a walking epoch, still unbroken after more than 50 millennia. Vulcan, his son, shares that same timeless trait. The lion returned from his slumber, looking aged, sure, but then he cleaved through Demon Angron like he was still in his prime, maybe even stronger than before. And Perturabo, he walked through the Tempera Ferox's temporal warping like time didn't even exist. The evidence isn't just light on aging, it's practically allergic to it. There's no broken-down Primarch in a rocking chair, no gray-haired warrior laying down his blade because his knees hurt. These are beings forged from warp and gene magic, designed to defy nature, mortality, and causality itself. If they can walk through time, tear apart demons, and outlive empires, then what is age but a myth they forgot to believe in? So, do Primarchs get old? Probably not. Or if they do, maybe it's just for show. What do you think? Could any of the Primarchs truly die of old age? Let me know in the comments. This is all for today. Like and subscribe. If you've enjoyed this video, I'll see you homies in the next one.